You're a son of a bitch, Sean.
You know, since switching over to this StreamYard, the fact I can mute you at the start just like makes my day. Like every time I take you off, I'm like, this is the greatest week ever, and it just keeps happening over and over and over again. So, welcome aboard Mashup 43. To all the people tuning in, I apologize. I thought it was going to be 7:30 tonight. Normally we record at 9. And now it's what, 4:30. Like we've kind of been bouncing around.
Long weekend, stuff like that happens.
Family day, blah blah blah. You kind of all get it. So if you found us here at 4:30 and you're like, what is going on? That's why. Anyway,
yeah,
those two,
which is funny because now you got to just be like, hey, everybody, shut the hell up. We're recording.
Before we started recording, as people were running by me trying to get out of the way, kids are screaming, kids are going to the bathroom. It's like, welcome.
They're the worst for that. It's like they're always going to the bathroom.
Well, Mashup 43 brought to you by AMC Electrical out of Rocky Mountain House. I think we started possibly maybe the next shirt idea for the Mashup. Not that we've been able to get the Tuesday we're working on that, folks. Not that we've been able to get the Rooster Slurper out the door, but small town Sass kids taking over the world. That's Drew McKay out in Rocky Mountain House. AMC Electrical, this week's major sponsor of the podcast. They've been rolling since 2005 out in Rocky. So another small town Sass kid.
Another small town Sass kid success story. A lot of alliteration there. I mean, it's funny how, Elon Musk, his mom is from Saskatchewan. You've got guys like Skip the Dishes. That's a Saskatchewan company. There's so many awesome things that have come out of Saskatchewan, aside from the Rough Riders, who are also awesome. And it's just, it's interesting. Like I remember when I just randomly showed up at a company in Lloyd when I was I think I was like 21 at the time, trying to get a job on the rigs. And I knew a guy who knew a guy. And basically they're like, okay, well, what's your background? And I just said, well, I grew up on a small town, or I grew up in a farm in a small town, Saskatchewan. And he's like, good enough. Can you push a broom? Yep. Okay. It's $12 an hour for shop wage. And I was like, you're going to pay me $12 an hour? I don't even need to go in the field. I'll just push that broom for the rest of my life for $12 an hour.
Yeah. Well, now people are, they're making a lot more than that. Let's leave it there.
Yeah. This was a ways back and it was a while ago, but it's just kind of funny how that was basically just all he needed to hear. And he's like, okay, yeah, you're what we're looking for.
Well, info in the show notes for people waking up in the morning on the podcast. Once again, if you got that fifth booster, that fifth one, you probably shouldn't apply. You just probably shouldn't apply. That's
might not be a good culture fit.
But shout out to AMC and the team over there for hopping on board again with it.
Yep.
With it. I would like to point out. I'd like to point out with Drew. He's the guy who initially threw out this idea of, hey, why don't you get small businesses on to support the Mashup? And I was like, yeah. We sat down. We were at Brown's that night having a sarsaparilla, and we're like, okay, yeah, sure. You know how many weeks we got left in 2023?
How many?
5. We have 3 weeks in July, 2 in September. And I'm pretty sure if I look back on my time frame, we started talking about this less than a month ago. Yep. And so it has been an interesting little ride on this side, trying to keep up to all of you. So if you're like, man, I got to get involved in this, there's 5 weeks left in 2023, folks. So that's by all means, text me, show notes, you can hit up the or social media. Either way, you can get a hold of one of us. More than likely, either way through there. Also, I'm going to do a shameless plug because Twos is going to be there, and if you want to,
just real quick before we're done with AMC, I thought it was really cool that when we're talking to him, we're like, okay, well, do you want us to talk about your business and see if we can drum up some business for that? And he's like, man, we are flat out. And so he's like, I guess you can if you want, but we've got more work than we can handle right now. And so it's interesting. I mean, sure, yeah, if you're in Rocky Mountain House and you need some electrical stuff done, you can look into it. But the thing about it is that they are so busy that they're just looking for qualified people. And this is what happens when the rubber meets the road and you've got some kind of a small town SaaS guy at the helm.
100%. One other shameless plug here on the mashup, although Twos is
totally not paying for.
Which Twos is totally going to be there and is probably going to benefit from this in some way, shape, or form. And that is the next SMP Presents Legacy Media featuring Kid Carson, Wayne Peters, Kim Sims, and Byron Christopher, March 18th in Edmonton. And yes, 222 minutes will be in the building. So if you're a fangirl or boy of Twos, you can, I don't know, pin them in a corner. And
honestly, the amount of cool stuff that like an event like that with those names, you're not even going to care that Twos is there. You're going to sit next to him and be like, hey, let's talk about Kid Carson for a while. And he's going to say yes, because Kid is awesome. Right?
Okay, well, I agree. It's going to be a fun evening. And I don't think, have we been disappointed so far, knock on wood, at an SMP Presents yet? No, they've been fun little shows to do.
There is no stab insurance offered by the venue. So even though it's in Edmonton, you are on your own as far as dealing with crackheads and vagabonds and vagrants.
Okay. Shall we start with a fan favorite? And I'm going to set the timer to 38:22. We got 13 topics today. I just feel like the amount of Rooster Slurper of the weeks we got in here this week, I'm just going to assume
just don't spoil it for everybody. Let's get to it when we get to it.
32-22. That's what I'm saying tonight. Anyways,
okay.
The NDP is not a serious party. What would you like to go? If anyone, we're trying to get a little jingle made for this one too, because this seems to be coming up every.
Should we do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
The NDP sucks.
There.
Even though Jagmeet Singh dresses swarthy, the NDP is not a serious party.
So this week's 338 Canada model update has the NDP losing up to 6 seats, among them Burnaby South.
Burnaby South is the riding of Jagmeet Singh. As you can see, they're up on the screen. This is his home riding, which, I mean, he ran in a by-election before, if I remember correctly, and didn't win it. And then it took him 2 tries to actually land a seat. But he is now projected to lose his own damn seat, which doesn't happen terribly often. Like Michael Ignatieff, when he was running the Liberal Party in 2011, I think it was, he lost. And, you've got, a few things like when the NDP in Saskatchewan have had that ongoing run of leaders that don't win their seats. I think there's been like 3 elections in a row where the leader hasn't won their seat. But they just keep trying to plug stuff that doesn't make a lick of goddamn sense. And you've got the head of the Workers' Party who is supposed to stand up for everyday people, but he doesn't. He drives around in a BMW and wears a Rolex with all these bespoke suits. Like, this is, I don't know. Like, he's not, I don't know who's consulting them on fashion, let alone policy, but they're all idiots.
I think this is just great. I just think it's great. I think him losing in his home riding, or predicted to right now, showing it, I think it's just fantastic too. I just think it's we haven't had a lot of positive things on this podcast, and this is one of the ones where it's like, what a way to lead off the week with that as your first one.
Think about the ripple effect on this, Sean. So the thing about Jagmeet Singh is that he has been scared to have another federal election. And so he just does whatever Trudeau tells him to, because he's scared of losing his seat. He's scared of falling out of favor. And mostly he's scared of running an election where they've got no goddamn money, because nobody really supports the party anymore. And now if he is favored to lose his own seat in his own riding, he is not going to do anything to force an election, which is really what he should be doing.
That's what he's there for. Yep.
But the thing about it is like if you were to go to 338.com and look at that updated map, the Liberals are losing in a lot of seats. They're looking to lose a lot of seats as well. And so now the question becomes whether Singh is smart enough to realize that he should be more okay with losing than Trudeau is, but he just can't get it past that tiny little brain of his. And so it's good news, but it is not ripple effect good news.
Ballet review is dog shit.
Yep.
The director of a leading German ballet company is being investigated by police and has been fired for smearing dog feces on a critic's face after taking offense to a review she wrote. He had a bag full of dog shit and he smashed it in her face. That's one way to deal with people you dislike.
Yes. And I don't know. I didn't go far enough into like finding these reviews and reading them, but apparently this has been an ongoing feud between them for a while. And I find it interesting that a ballet reviewer can have an ongoing feud with somebody about how they're not dancing prettily enough. And the whole thing seems fairly ludicrous, and just the fact that he just went and rounded up some shit from his dog, who's a Dachshund or something like that. So it's just classic German. And so it's not a Shih Tzu. It's not one of those itty bitty yappy little dog shits. This is one of the things that looks like it came out of a horse. I mean, shape aside, but yeah. And he just went up to her and shoved a bunch of dog shit in her face.
I'm wondering where the video is of this. You know, like if we're going to talk about this, all I want to do is play the video just so everybody can see it. Because I think we could all, you know, I feel for the person. I do.
Yeah.
But I think we could all, it's like seeing someone kicked in the nuts. You know, it's like, I feel for them, but I'd still like to see it. I just like to see it, you know.
I saw an awesome video on YouTube one time of a ref that was running into the circle and he wiped out and slid nuts first into the post. It was just absolutely glorious. I bet you I watched that thing 100 times on repeat.
Now, to everyone's favorite portion, probably, more than likely, the Rooster Slurper of the week.
We like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind.
Yeah.
More inclusive.
There we go, exactly. Yes, thank you.
And the budget will balance itself.
Man, you are one pathetic loser. No offense.
Man, you were one pathetic loser. I'm never gonna get past like saying that like over and over and over again when it comes to this. I actually I'm gonna have like such a joy when he's no longer in office and such sadness we don't get to play that clip as much, because I'm sure he'll find a way to make it to the mashup either way.
And I hope he doesn't quit on a Monday, because I can promise you that, and I've already had this conversation at work, when Trudeau is gone, I'm calling in drunk for like 3 straight days. And so, yeah, if we do a mashup during that window, it's going to be a shit show.
We're going to do a mashup during that window, and we're going to have to come up with some great name for it that is better than the Festivus mashup that we did at Christmas that everybody liked. It's going to be something completely different. And
now for something completely different.
That's right. This week, where he's making headlines, well, I don't know, there's a whole bunch here. We're going to start with the Emergency Commission. The Public Order Emergency Commission issued its Friday report. This was Western Standard. And I'm going to be a little long-winded here for a second, because Twos sent me like 18 articles on this. Okay, so let's start with Western Standard. The Public Order Emergency Commission issued its Friday report, or its report Friday, about 3 days before initially expected. It is more than 2,000 pages of Trudeau's government talking points. An appalling exoneration of an authoritarian government stole the right to freeze the bank accounts of its political enemies. He met the very high threshold, in quotes, of being justified in invoking the act. The report says Justin Paul Rollo said, I have concluded that in this case, the very high threshold for caution was met. I have done do with reluctance. I've concluded the cabinet was reasonably concerned that the issue or the situation, geez, I can't read today. It's like I'm on holidays or something too.
Figure it out. Figure it out. We are live.
It
Quit
was
fucking around, Sean.
it was worsening and at risk of becoming dangerous and unmanageable, he said, adding there was credible and compelling evidence. He's talking of the public order emergency. I'm going to continue. The National Post wrote, none of the 76 witnesses whose testimonies Rollo's commission waded through made a compelling case for using the Emergency Act to quell the Freedom Convoy protest. Rollo shrugged and gave the government a pass. It's nothing short of a cop-out. In the end, he decided to split the difference while finding the government met the high threshold required. He noted he did not come to this conclusion easily and did not consider the factual basis to be overwhelming. And then finally, the Toronto Sun wrote, the elite view of the Freedom Convoy has won, not the legal view, not the view of the law enforcement and Canada's intelligence services, both of whom were sure the protesters who blockaded downtown Ottawa last winter posed no threat to our democracy or our national security. They could be dealt with using ordinary law enforcement powers and tactics. That's where we begin. That is a lot.
They all said that. Interesting thing tacked on to one of the quotes that you read. I do not consider the factual basis for it to be overwhelming. Reasonable and informed people could reach a different conclusion than the one I have arrived at.
Yes.
It was a very nice way of saying that he just Pontius piloted himself on this. He was like, I'm going to give them a pass because I don't want to deal with the fallout for this in my career and everything else. I am just going to give them the gentlest pass possible.
Could it be that he's got family ties? Could it be?
Okay, so that's been, I think, fairly summarily debunked. There's a few people with similar names. And so my understanding is that is not the case.
Interesting.
Because there's a Rouleau. He's got a brother that's got the same name as Justin Trudeau's aunt's husband. So kind of an uncle.
Sure.
But it's a different guy is my understanding of it. The interesting thing is that you saw a full court press on it. You saw all kinds of fact checkers dropping it, but like Andrew Lawton fact checked it too. So it's interesting that for once, I think probably just about the first time, the fact checkers, I think, have been correct on this. As much as, and don't get me wrong, I would love to say that a family member of Trudeau decided that Trudeau was correct in this commission. That I would love nothing more than to tell you that right now, Sean, but I don't think it's the case. My understanding is that it's just, it's Rouleau. Everything's named Rouleau. Dog River was filmed in Rouleau. Everybody, yeah. So I don't know what a rule is, but I know that O is water. I don't speak fucking French. So yeah, it's just it's the most timid endorsement you could possibly imagine. Oh, you had that queued up. Okay, well, yeah. I don't want to burst your spy balloon on this one, Sean, but I don't think it was the case.
Just having some fun over here, folks. That's what I'm trying to do. Rooster Slurper of the week. 2 Rooster, 2 Slurper. This one is the Trudeau government certainly learned quickly from the mistakes of releasing details of a $6,000 per night hotel room that's last September. Justin Trudeau jetted off to London to attend the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II, and the negative headline came out of while he was there surrounding his piano bar rendition of the hit song Bohemian Rhapsody. Documents released on the cost.
What does he know about being a poor boy?
I know. Documents released on the cost of the government's delegation's trip to New York for the United Nations General Assembly. Reveal next to no details beyond the full cost, not even the name of the hotel. And I like this in one of the articles. It said, before becoming Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau said, Canadians deserve the most transparent and open government in the world. Covering up wasteful spending has become the rule rather than the exception for this Trudeau government. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So the big thing was that $6,000 a night hotel was, to my understanding, the most expensive hotel room that you could get in England at that time, on that night. It was the most expensive one you could get. And of course, Canada, because it's not like they're paying it out of pocket. And like we're so far removed from the $16 orange juice that Bev Oda resigned from. Like if the Conservatives were smart, they would actually start talking about that. And they would say, we are going to be the $16 orange juice party. And if you fuck around, you're out. Because this is insane. You know, the thing about the $6,000 hotel room is that actually when it was released, they fucked around with the exchange rates,
and it was
$7,
7,
and it was actually closer to 7. And so, and then it's funny because I saw some people defending it online, and they were saying, well, you know, the reason why he had to get this hotel room was because Stephen Harper sold the house that the Canadian government had in London, which he sold like 10 years ago for $530 million. The Canadian government had a $500 million residence in England for diplomatic shit. Of course you should sell that fucking thing. Like there's no way that the real estate justifies it. And because some guy 10 years ago sold a $500 million house, that meant that Trudeau had to get the most expensive goddamned hotel in the entire city during the Queen's funeral. And when they released it, because the Canadian Taxpayers Federation asked for who stayed there, so they had a statement with blah, 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 but it was blanked out, stayed at the hotel. They actually redacted it because there's no security concern. Brian Lilly, he took the words right out of my mouth. He's like, the only way this is a security concern is if someone gets a Terminator to go back in time and murder him. Like it's already said and done. He's not there anymore. You can say who stayed at that hotel. It's not that big of a security deal to just say, okay, well, it was this guy or it was that guy or whatever. It was 6 months ago. What are you going to do about it now?
What do you think a $6,000 hotel room actually gets you compared to, like, let's say the $120 travel lodge?
I imagine it's probably like a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot thing, a few different levels.
So a penthouse. So a penthouse.
Assuming it was Trudeau, which is probably fair to say because they confirmed that the Governor General didn't stay there. So assuming it was Trudeau, he probably didn't even set foot in every single one of the rooms in that place. Oh, and it was on the waterfront on the Thames. And so, but it's funny because they're doubling down on this where people are asking for it and they're just like, nope. We're gonna redact it. Like
at this point, too, they're a bunch of idiots. I mean,
yes.
The fact that they're a bunch of idiots. I get it.
We can't possibly devote more time in this show to Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party and how stupid they are. Sean, what do you got next for us?
Well, why not Rooster Slurper of the Week? The cock.
Well, how about
rice? On Tuesday, Mario Dion issued a report finding the Liberal MP Greg Fergus, the Prime Minister's parliamentary secretary, had violated the Conflict of Interest Act. No kidding. When he petitioned the CRTC on behalf of an acquaintance to grant a small television station a broadcasting license requiring a mandatory distribution in Quebec. This was in direct violation of law, which prohibits ministers and parliamentary secretaries from trying to influence the decisions of administration tribunals. Fergus chalked it up to an unintentional error.
Honestly, like this isn't a ball game. Like, oh, it was a catchable ball and he lost it in the sun. Okay, well, you know, they got this many runs, this many hits, and there's one more error. Like, how many times does it need to go on before somebody at the Conflict of Interest office in Ottawa says that every Liberal minister should take conflict of interest training? Oh, wait, that happened last week.
Yeah, I'm actually almost wondering too, is if they're just like, oh yeah, they're gonna tell you need to take this training, and it's not that big a deal, and the news is gonna run with it for like a half a second, and just keep doing what you're doing, because if we get it through, it's a good thing.
But it's now happened so many times with the Liberal government that the official recommendation of that office of idiot bureaucrats is to say that every single Liberal minister should take conflict of interest training.
Correct.
And then he quit, presumably for health reasons.
But
I mean, at what point do you just be like, what the fuck am I even doing here? Okay, but that's enough about the liberals.
We like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind. It's
yeah.
more inclusive.
There we go. Exactly. Dan, thank you.
And the budget will balance itself.
Man, you are one pathetic loser. No offense.
Man, you're one pathetic loser. I had to play it one more time. You give me 4 Rooster Slurpers of the week in a row. The slurpening
They're
this time.
all different subjects.
I realize. I'm just saying. At some point, I'm just like hankering to press the button again. I'm like, I'm gonna hit it.
It is a great jingle.
It's a great jingle, man. It's a great jingle. Okay, here we go. Rooster Slurper of the week, the slurpening. Okay, draw from a series of CSIS intelligence gathering operations. Remember. I'll finish it here. The documents illustrate how an orchestrated machine was operating in Canada with 2 primary aims: to ensure that a minority Liberal government was returned in 2021 and that certain Conservative candidates identified by China were defeated. The document says that the Chinese Communist Party leadership in Beijing was pressuring its consulates to create strategies to leverage politically active Chinese community members and associates within Canadian society. Beijing uses Canadian organizations to advocate on their behalf while obfuscating links to the People's Republic of China. Most important, the intelligence report shows that Beijing was determined that the Conservatives did not win. China employed disinformation campaigns and proxies connected to Chinese Canadian organizations in Vancouver and the GTA, which have large mainland Chinese immigrant communities, to voice opposition to the Conservatives and favor the Trudeau Liberals. It went on to say the CSIS documents reveal that Chinese diplomats and their proxies, including some members of the Chinese language media, were instructed to press home that the Conservative Party was too critical of China and that if elected, it would follow the lead of former U.S. President Donald Trump and ban Chinese students from certain universities or education programs. The official added, the Liberal Party of Canada is becoming the only party the PRC can support. And then, of course, Polivier said Friday he finds it hard to believe Trudeau wasn't aware of the CSIS finding, because that's what Trudeau's been saying. And Justin Trudeau, another quote from him was, Justin Trudeau knew about this interference and he covered up because he benefited from it. He's perfectly happy to let foreign authoritarian government interference in our elections as long as they're helping him.
Okay, so this has been
It's been going on for
years. It's been definitively proven with CSIS that China is actively trying to keep the Liberals in charge. Okay, and Trudeau has been keeping it hush hush.
Correct.
And apparently he got caught lying about it in question period. And that's where the Polyev statement comes in, because there's no way you couldn't know about this. Like, CSIS disseminated this to all the senior cabinet members and our Five Eyes allies. So I get the fact that he just fucking sleeps until 10, smokes a bong, rolls out of bed, and shows up once a week. But it had to have been put on his fucking desk. Right? Yeah, it's probably got bong water on it, but it's still fucking there. And to think that he didn't read that is just absolutely ludicrous. And so, I mean, there's a few real focal points I want to hit rapid fire. One,
sure.
There was this Conservative candidate, Ben Smith, who said that when he was door knocking, he said that he went to a place in Markham, Ontario, and he asked the guy if he'd consider voting for him. And he said, I'll never forget him saying he wanted to, but feared what would happen to his family back home if he did.
I pulled it up on the screen for you, too.
Yeah, I see it. And so you've got supposedly, I mean, it may or may not be true. It's not, obviously, this is just one guy's thing. But it would make sense if they're doing this full court press and they've got a dozen different police stations operating in Canada. Chinese police stations are operating in Canada right now. And this, again, is not up for debate. This isn't a conspiracy theory. And so, I mean, what would the police stations be there and then be doing there? I thought it was interesting. Pull up the Polyev one that I had notes on. So this one's interesting. So this is the perfect classic CBC tweet. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre claims Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is trying to, quote, cover up Chinese interference in the last federal election. They don't go with the Globe and Mail has definitively proven this with whistleblower reports or anything like that. It's just, oh, Poilievre is accusing him. Well, no. Polyev isn't accusing him. He's just reiterating what has been leaked to news agencies and been reported on widely in Canada. But the CBC can't even be honest in their coverage of something as simple as this. And here's I think the crux of this. This is probably the most important part when you think about it. Is everybody says, okay, well, naturally, and it makes sense that from a certain completely fucking asshole perspective, that if all you care about is winning, and if China is trying to illegitimately help you win elections, that you would just turn a blind eye to it. But at what point do you take in some self-reflection? Do you stop to think about this a little bit? And do you say, okay, well, probably one of the most aggressive countries against Canada, and I would say the Western world, is trying to prop you up as their ideal country leader in this place that they see as an antagonist and something that they want to export resources from. And they're your guy that they pick as being the best choice for them. At what point do you stop and ask yourself if maybe you should be doing things a little bit fucking differently?
About 3 years ago. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, we're so far down this rabbit hole. I don't think
there's no self-awareness here. I mean, it would be like, okay, obviously they're not literally Satan.
If
Satan comes up through some fucking lava hole in the ground, he's all fire and brimstone and says, Sean, I have chosen you and
I hear you
to be the head podcast. We'd be like, well, fuck, are we the baddies? Maybe we're not doing something right here, right? Like let's just pause and just reflect. Maybe we're not totally as good as we possibly could be if Satan wants us to be the best podcast in the world. But if the fucking Winnie the Pooh Bear himself handpicks Justin Trudeau as the ideal leader of Canada, at what point does Justin Trudeau say, you know what? Maybe I should just calm the fuck down a second.
I'm not even, I don't even, you know what? Let's go on to beer taxes. Can we do that? Do that? Maybe I'll get a word. Maybe folks, I'll get a word in if we talk about beer, Twos is on a roll today. Sean's on vacation. He's like, you know what? All right, fair enough. Twos wants to yell at the screen for a bit. Sean's going to let him yell at the screen for a bit. He's probably going to mute him at some point, but that's cool. Beer tax far from pint-sized. Here's man, this thing on beer is strange. But here we go again. Canada now has the highest tax rate on alcoholic beverages in the Western world. And guess what? As of April 1st, which we talked about, what was this? Like a couple, 3-4 weeks ago? Anyways, doesn't matter. We'll be even higher. So April 1st, your alcohol is going up. Your beer is going up. The so-called...
sorry, go ahead.
The so-called escalator tax will increase by 6.3%, making it the highest increase ever. And wait, next April 1st, twos, it goes up again. Anyways, it ain't going to stop. And I'm going to show give me
the tweet from Sylvain Charlebois, who's been on your show.
Here you go. So here it says Canada now has the highest rate on, it says the same thing. And then
Canada's on the left. And
Canada's on the left. You can see them at 46.4%. So when you buy a beer in Canada, 46.4% of that is tax.
And you know what? Probably about 30% of it is the can. And then there's some room for the markup. And a tiny little bit in the middle is what it actually costs for the producer. Like, this is
wild.
Oh, it's absolutely insane.
We all go to the States and you're like, oh man, it's so cheap down there.
Oh yeah.
Look at where they are on the bottom, right down here. 17%.
Which, by the way, is about 17-ish% too high, I would say. But that's just me. I just find it. We need to stop calling it an escalator tax. This is like a SpaceX tax. This isn't just a slow escalator that kind of gradually moves up. This is a fucking rocket ship to the moon.
Yeah, like, look at where this is going to go over next.
Honestly, I would drown my sorrows over this, but it's too fucking expensive at this point, Sean.
Unless you're sitting somewhere where the beer is a little cheaper, then you can drown it. Drowned away, folks.
Brew your own, man. Take the government right out of it.
Shocking. Shop teachers' giant breasts are removable. We all remember a Canadian teacher who made international headlines for wearing gigantic prosthetic breasts, rarely wears them outside of school, raising questions about whether the vulgar costume is just an act. While parents have raged about transgender teacher Kayla Lemieux being allowed to wear Z-cup prosthetic in front of students, the shopkeeper was spotted ditching the controversial fetishistic. I can't even. How do you fetishistic?
Fetishistic.
Sure. Fashion after work and stepping out in the public dressed as a man. He wears prosthetic breasts extremely infrequently, and resident of Lemieux's apartment complex told the Post.
Well,
puts the breast on to teach, occasionally when he goes out for walks or when cops visit. And then it went on to talk about when he first put him on, he was walking around the streets and people were slowing down because it's kind of like, well, how can't you? It sticks out.
I mean, yeah, obviously, like if you're driving and you're like, okay, well, I can't really see what's up in front of me right now because there's some giant tits in the way. And of course, he's going to take them off all the time. Imagine his back problems 20 years from now if he's wearing those giant fucking sweater monkeys 24 hours a day. And honestly, this picture was taken after the Chinese spy balloon got shot down. Are we entirely sure that they're not the same thing? Funny bit from the story was the Toronto Sun reported Board Chair Margot Shuttleworth saying that protecting employees, quote, gender rights is, quote, the stance the school board is taking, and they are standing behind the teacher. Well, of course they're standing behind the teacher. There's no room to fucking stand in front of them.
Here's a picture of them not dressed up. Okay, so this is what they're reporting on. It gets better though. Look, let's get down to the bottom. Okay, so this is the picture we've all seen, right? Like holy Dinah. I'd never seen you went skydiving, right? Went skydiving.
Yeah, just imagine he's skydiving and these things are just flapping behind him like
I was thinking
that's
like
the Chinese spy balloon right there. That was the skydiving event. They fucking shot him down over the Yukon, Sean. I'm telling you.
Imagine it didn't. The parachute didn't go. I mean, you would ricochet off the ground.
Well, you'd bounce, and then you'd be up at like instead of 10,000 feet, you'd lose a little bit of altitude, and you'd be at like 9,400 feet. Like, oh fuck! I hope these things can withstand about 50 more collisions.
Oh man! Oh. All right. Automotive innovators show demonstrates the affordability of EVs with a $20 million prototype.
The one-of-a-kind prototype, which is by definition a fucking prototype. God, who writes these fucking things?
As the automotive world electrifies, domestic parts manufacturers have rolled out a made-in-Canada concept car to showcase their capabilities. More than 50 Canadian suppliers collaborated on an electric and autonomous vehicle called Project Aero, the brainchild of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association. Among the cutting-edge features, the Aero has a solar panel roof and a 3D printed chassis, as well as driver's seat and steering wheel that can tell if the driver is experiencing a medical emergency and then instruct the car to head to the nearest hospital.
He gets the bill for the car and he has a heart attack.
$20
million.
I wrote this back in because I every time I read this, ever since having Chris Sims on, I'm like, I think we need to continue. Well, anyways, gas-burning cars and trucks account for 95% of registered vehicles in 2021, okay? According to StatsCan. But the federal government has mandated that 20% of new passenger vehicles sold in Canada must be emission-free by 2026, 3 years, rising to 60% by 2030 and 100% by 2035. Just saying. And the automotive prototype is worth $20 million, as in the headline states. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get that inflation's getting out of fucking control right now, but come on. It was funded by $5 million in grants from the federal government, $1.8 million from Ontario, $1.4 million from fucking Quebec, and the parts makers contributed $12 million worth of one-off parts, research, and development. It doesn't even have any fucking door handles. Look at it.
Yeah, there's the they classified it as an SUV, but I thought first thing I thought when I saw it was I'm like, is that a minivan? Like, to me, that's what it looks like. I don't know.
It's embarrassing that our money went towards this. And they're like, okay, well, we built this as a concept car because it was a university project. And now it's just kind of open source and it's free for anybody who wants to take it and run for it. All they need to do is get the risk capital, which if you're selling a car, I get the fact that it's a prototype and there's, as soon as you start mass producing, costs go down. But $20 million seems a little fucking high, especially with all the customized stuff where you're like, I didn't get vaccinated. I don't need my car to know if I'm having a heart attack or not, right?
I read it. Maybe I'm wrong on this, and carve me up for this too. When I read it, I read it as a way that they are manufacturers are trying to show that in Canada they can manufacture different new age pieces for different automobile manufacturers. So I don't think they ever plan on this ever going any further than what it is. Just more of like showcasing their talent. Now they spent $20 million on it, so I have no idea what one piece of this is worth, other than they're going to take it around and try and take the tech they used in it to hopefully implement into different automotive manufacturers here in Canada. That's the way I read it. Am I wrong in that?
Well, I think you're partially right. I think a big part of this was just that some university students with probably some connections, because it was in Carleton, were clever enough to just be like, well, you know what? We could get an absolute shit ton of money if we had a really sexy, thesis project. Our capstone project, we could just do something like this, and we're good to go. We don't even have to worry about graduating. Like, they probably just dropped this the second they got their mark. And they named it the Arrow, which is just the most historically oblivious name you could possibly pick for a Canadian transportation vessel.
Of course, you're talking the Avro Arrow, but
Yeah.
How about this one? This one literally has. Anyways, I heard about this everywhere I went this week. Edmonton is full of boobs. The city of Edmonton amended policy for topless swimmers at city pools, raising eyebrows this week. All patrons are allowed to swim and lounge around a city of Edmonton pool without a top on, regardless of their gender identity. The policy under the city's swimwear guidelines for pools has been in place since June 2022, but it's not widely been advertising its change. Once again, here we go. Here's Sean's just horrific name saying ability today.
Dude, just go with it. Everybody just understand that Sean's gonna fuck up the names.
Priya Basan Singh, director of Edmonton's Aquatics and Community Leisure Centers, said the policy aligns with gender identity and expression protections found in the Alberta Human Rights Act. We believe our swimming guidelines must not discriminate on the basis of gender and not exclude anyone visiting a city facility.
Okay, how about this? Nobody really cares. If you got a pair of tits, whip them out. And like, have you ever been to a beach in Europe or like a Mexican resort or whatever else? Right? I mean, like,
here's the thing too.
It's not that big of a deal, but they're trying to turn it into a gender expression thing. How about just have it as if you want to whip out your fucking chesticles, have at her.
Here's the thing. Women aren't going to do this. And if they do, great. All right. What's going to end up happening is a guy who
people are going to be
transitioned.
showing off their prosthetic boobs.
Correct.
Like they're just going to have them sitting on the fucking cabana table next to them.
This is going to become something that they're trying to say, oh, women can do it too. But no women want, like, what percentage of women were pushing for this? Like, honestly.
Not high enough.
Right. So every guy goes, man, can't wait to go around and sit at Edmonton because this is going to be great. And you're like, no, it's not, because the only people who are going to do it are men who are transitioning. Like, this is.
I mean, like, as a concept, it's good. As an execution idea, the fact that they picked a place with so many ugly people is unfortunate.
Luck runs out for RCMP commissioner.
I wanted to make this the happy news of the week.
RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki has announced she will retire effective March 17th. Do you want me to read any more, or can we just move on?
Well, let's throw maybe just a bit of background for anybody who maybe hasn't listened to every single Tuesday mashup.
Sure. Okay. Lucky's appointment was supposed to signal a change in the RCMP that would see our national police force deal with very real problems with the force, like persistent problems of sexism and sexual harassment within the ranks, and allegations of racism, especially towards Canada's Indigenous community. After 5 years, it's unclear if anything has improved on either of those fronts.
It has.
We have seen Lucky tarnish the reputation of RCMP through her actions and lack of leadership. I mean, I can just read the entire article, but
how about this? For anybody who actually went and did the homework that I assigned them, I don't know, 10, 20 weeks ago, when we talked about that recording that got leaked.
Yes.
And I was talking about how ineffectual she was as just the coordinator of a meeting. which you'd think if you were commissioner of an entire bureaucratic organization, you'd be pretty fucking good at. But no, like, honestly, I don't think there's a single aspect of her job that she did not suck at, because she was placed there by the Liberals. And so because of that, she was beholden to the Liberals for her entire tenure, which was unfucking believably disastrous. You've got the Danforth mass shooting, and then her trying to fucking cover it up and interfere with the investigation. You've got just so many things that happened, like just little stuff here and there where, oh, you talk about the Aboriginal stuff. How many times did you hear about something like Colton Boushie, which is interesting? We should really talk about that sometime. And I think we actually might have. You look at what happened with the Freedom Convoy, right? I mean, all this stuff happened under her purview, and she was just this completely impotent figurehead. She was just an absolute disaster. And now what's going to happen is the next time that you've actually got a qualified woman coming up through the ranks, and they say, okay, well, you know what? Maybe she'd be a good commissioner. And they'd say, fuck no. Every single woman we've had as an RCMP commissioner has been a fucking disaster. Let's get somebody with some balls.
Santa Trudeau Santa Trudeau puts coal in the stockings of developing countries. Pakistan, I was just literally having this discussion on, how to save the world, how to do like great things. Okay, here we go. Pakistan plans to quadruple its domestic coal-fired capacity to reduce power generation costs and will not build new gas-fired plants in the coming years, its energy minister told Reuters on Monday, as it seeks to ease a crippling foreign exchange crisis. A shortage of natural gas, which accounts for over a third of the country's power output, plunged large areas into hours of darkness last year. A surge in global prices of liquefied natural gas, LNG, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and an onerous economic crisis had made LNG unaffordable for Pakistan. Pakistan plans to switch to coal to provide its citizens reliable electricity, underscores challenges in drafting effective decarbonization strategies at a time when some developing countries are struggling to keep the lights on.
They're going back to Old Faithful, something they could just rely on. You just scoop it up out of the ground, throw it in, and it gives them power at roughly, because it's not always the same, roughly 10 times the greenhouse gas emissions of liquefied natural gas, for which there is no business case for. This isn't something we really need to beat a dead horse on or trample somebody with a horse over or anything like that. This is just another example of, oh, you know what? Pakistan they didn't sign some crazy deal with Qatar or Oman. They just can't get a steady supply of LNG. So they're just not going to go with it. And they're going to go with coal. Like, so it's not even just Germany and Japan and places like that have secured LNG deals with other oil producing countries. This is now other countries say, okay, well, there's no more left for any of us, so I guess we're going back to fucking coal.
Yeah, well, I just appreciate the people who follow this show, too. And I know they don't need to be reminded that we've been tracking this little storyline now for 4 months, and this is the repercussions of it. Instead of having LNG leaving our exports, going to these countries that want it, need it, everything else, that have a lot of benefits.
Now they're doing coal at roughly 10 times the amount of greenhouse gas emissions. And if you care about that. And you're absolutely right about the people who listen week to week. And here's, I don't know, this is kind of how I like to listen to it. It's something that Thomas Sowell talked a lot about, is just, it's not just that first instance of when this policy takes effect. It's what's the ripple effect afterwards? What's the next step? And what's the next step after that? And what's the next step after that? So it was him saying, fuck Alberta. And then the next step after that was that every other LNG producing country got rich. And the next step after that is that all the poor countries who can't afford it are now switching to coal.
Are switching back.
And the next step after that is that the global greenhouse gas emissions are going up. And, the Greenpeace fucking idiots, they love to say there is no planet 2. It's just the one world. Well, you know what? it doesn't really matter whether the carbon dioxide's going into the air over here or over there. It's still the fucking same planet that it's all going into.
This is where I wish I had an applause button. All I got is a buzzer, but I would just like to be like, yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, listen, I'm going to go back to it. With our listeners, they've been following along. They've got to hear this story play out in its ineptitude. And here we sit and we get to see that and read these stories. And you're like, it's got to be time for one thing and one thing alone. Happy news.
Happy news.
I can't end on that. Here you go. Okay. Not family member. 11-year-old book becomes overnight bestseller. Lloyd Devereaux. Actually, I'm going to pull this up here. Let's pull it up.
Okay, keep talking while you pull it up, though. Do things at once, Sean.
Can I do 8 things at once? You know,
try
like
and keep people interested here.
You know, like
they're
literally,
gonna tune out and start listening to Ryan Jesperson or something if we don't actually keep on top of this shit. Nobody even knows who he is.
We lose to him, then good riddance. Here we go. Lloyd Devereaux Richards is now a best-selling author after 11 years after publishing his first novel, Stone Maidens, which if you're watching, you can see on the screen. So it was 11 years ago. He spent 14 years writing the novel about an FBI agent trying to unmask a serial killer. He then spent over a decade hoping his novel would take off, but it never did. That is until his daughter, Marguerite, posted a TikTok on February 8th. February 8th. That's like 2 weeks ago, encouraging people to buy it. Since posting the video on TikTok, it has garnered more than 44 million views and nearly 10 million likes, pushing it to best-selling author on Amazon. And there's the book. There's a whole bunch of there's videos. There's a whole bunch of different things going on. That's super cool.
This absolutely warms my heart. When you think about like all the shit that's going on and how fucked up the world is, and how somebody just says, my dad spent almost a decade and a half pouring his heart and soul into his magnum opus, and it never got large scale media attention. It never took off. It was never a great seller. But this guy absolutely poured himself into this. And if you guys could show him a bit of love, I'm sure he'd appreciate it. And then the internet just overreacted, which is what the internet does, but it did it in such a cool way that it became the Amazon #1 bestseller. It warms my cold, black, dead heart, Sean, that something like this happened. You got no sound. Do I have no sound? Okay, you muted yourself, which is great. So fucking karma, bitch. Okay, so I'm gonna keep talking. So Sean is gone. No, we can hear his laughing, but no, Sean, we can't hear you. So basically, what happened?
You know what happens, folks, when he starts talking like this? I get to mute him, and then then I finally get to have my say. Maybe this is what I'll do from now on. When Sean wants to have his say, I'll just mute Twos and be like, "Fuck off, Twos. I can have a say too here." This is why we end.
You went quiet again. And you're talking, but nobody can hear you.
Am I mute? Like nobody's gonna talk.
No, this is great. Okay, so I'm gonna finish up the show. Okay,
I can't hear you anymore.
Honestly, when people,
my computer's fucked, and
okay,
I keep coming in and out.
Zip it with your weird echo. Okay, so here's the thing, folks. If you ever hear of somebody, one of your friends, neighbors, family members, starting a small business, writing a book, putting on a concert, literally anything, go see it, go buy it, even if you don't like it or want it. If it's some kind of a dog product and you don't own a dog, well, first off, buy a dog. But secondly, go out and buy that thing, whether you got your dog yet or not. I was like, this is the lifeblood of humans helping each other. Okay. And I thought it was absolutely wonderful. And Sean, I hope you figured your audio shit out. And if you haven't, just throw up the comments and I'll start talking to him.
I think I did. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah, you're good. Okay.
I don't know what happened. This is, hey, what are you going to do? Yeah, I thought it was great news. And this is why we end on happy news and then comments from the audience, because after a week or after listening to like 12 headlines of Two's rant and just like ineptitude of our government and everything else, you get to this and you're like, at least there's some happy news going on out there. Yeah, so Barbagoka said, oil, LNG, farmers, mandates, jobs, business. How much more will Canadians take? And hey, China is directing the kid.
She's not wrong on anything there. Well put. I would put less punctuation in it, but I'm just a stickler for that kind of thing.
And then Anthony Murray said, "Great show, fellas."
Hey, thanks, Anthony.
You know, I gotta say a couple things here. One is people have been commenting on Tooz and I's audio off and on, and if you notice, Tooz has got a nice new little setup this week. He sounds pretty crisp, I'd like to say. I keep joking about the CBC's budget. I wish I had even a fraction of it, but the truth of the matter is, Tooz works full time, and neither of us have the budget to go out and have this in a studio every night. So. Cool to see us slowly upgrading, but I appreciate all the comments coming in on the audio or anything else, the video, when it comes to the sound clips, all that stuff. It's all great. Love all your feedback, and please continue to reach out, because that's what makes this show what it is. Not only what we do, but hearing back from all of you guys. So that's just a comment here at the end, too. Funny
story. When I first started my 222 cents, I did with a budget of less than $50. Not that I was just, I spent less than $50 to get it up and running, and it was past time to actually get something respectable.
First time listening live.
That's no way.
First time listening live. Okay, so long time listener, first time listener of the live. Love it. The FC review outcome was obvious. I agree. The mute debacle was great. And the mute debacle. Oh, I'm assuming me muting myself. Yeah. And do you have to hold your mic? And I assume he's talking to me. I'm on vacation, so yes, it's a handheld, and I knocked something. That's why my audio went out. So I'm sitting in a. I don't know how many. We're at Mashup 43 Tooz. How many times have I been on the road, or you been on the road in 43, where we're makeshifting a studio to make this work?
Oh,
half.
I have recorded probably in about 15 different places, I imagine.
Well, I almost passed out in the one. I was in a hotel storage room. It was so hot. By the end of it, I was almost like, we got to stop. This is brutal. But that's what makes that's the fun of it.
Yeah. I mean, it worked out well that you didn't die.
Well, yes.
And if you change your mind later, you can always just apply for maid.
Well, I think, sir, that's going to wrap it for 43 of these yahoos.
All right. Well, next time we got 22 times 2.
22 times 2 coming up next week, number 44.
Yep.
Here's another one. Lisa Blahy, I apologize. She didn't tell me that it's any other way. 2 says stop apologizing. That's what I do. It's the Canadian part of me. What can I say? Great show. You always make me laugh. I was just thinking about the storage room. Yeah, that was
perfect.
That was that was an interesting time. I had that damn fly flying by my head. Anyways, Tooz next week. 44, 22 times 2.
Yep.
And we'll go from there. Earl Whaley says shit missed it.
Happy Father's Day, boys.
Family Day.
Oh, Family
Day. You forget when Father's Day is?
No, I didn't forget. I was about to say, what the fuck is he thinking Father's? I glanced down really quickly to read it, and then I looked. Yeah.
Lee's.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
We'll make a concerted effort to get the listeners' names right. But as far as I'm concerned, anybody we're talking about in the articles, good or bad, you just go with whatever you think the first pronunciation is, and don't even apologize anymore. Just roll with it. Yeah. Family
Day here too.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Tooz
totally blundered it. This is why we don't get him to read anything.
Yeah. Well, it's riggers. I mean, we're not exactly known for our literacy.
All right, Tooz. We will catch you next week. Appreciate everybody throwing. There's no
Earl Wally. Okay, all right. Let's shut this down because Marty up north wanted to keep us under an hour because apparently that's all he's good for jogging for. I mean, the guy lives outside and he can't even fucking
keep running, Marty. Yeah. Keep running. All right, We'll catch up to you next week, and until then.
Okay, bye.